thank you for coming out and participating today. What we'd like to start with is the beginning. If you could just formally tell us your name, where you were born, what year you were born, and then we'll just go from there.
Okay. My name is Ceasar C. Latimer. I was born here in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1926, January 27th, 1926. I was born right here in Tulsa, as I said. I'm living now about 1 block away from the place where I was born. So I've been here in Tulsa all of my life, except the time that I served with the United States Marines in World War II. I'm kind of proud of myself because I have done the things that I told them I would do when I got discharged from the from the Marine Corps. I served at Okinawa in the Muddy Foxholes at the beginning of the invasion and at the end of the conclusion of the war. I was in the Muddy Foxholes there. I left there and we liberated China. Back in those days, you know, you had your Army material, your Marine Corps material. But anyway, since the issue of China has become important today, I'm glad to be able to tell everyone that I was there in 1945. Shortly after they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. After that, after my discharge, I came back home. And at the time I was discharged, they asked me what was I going to do. I told them that I was going to use my GI Bill to go to school and to study law. Because at that time, while we were treated the way we were blacks, the way we were being treated, I didn't understand the law why they would allow them to do that. So that's what I told them. And today I'm able to say that I've done what I told them I was going to do. After I come back and go to law school. I did go to law school. I finished, graduated. They wouldn't let me go to law school here in Oklahoma. I had to leave here. But I don't mind, and I went on. So I'm here now, and after I've had 60 years of full practice, all kinds of practice, I say I've accomplished what I told them I wanted to do. And as far as education is concerned, as I said before, when I came back to Oklahoma with my GI Bill, Oklahoma would not allow me to use a GI Bill because they did not allow blacks to attend their white colleges. So they didn't care about the fact that I was like any other Marine who had fought in Okinawa and had the GI Bill. They didn't care anything about that. I was black and I wasn't going to that school. So I left and went to Indiana after talking this over with my mother and dad. And they told me to go to Indiana if they would accept me. And that's where I went. So I finished all of my education at the University of Indiana. Came back, after I graduated from law school, I came back to Oklahoma to practice law. And at that time, the courthouse was fully a white organization. Matter of fact, I go to say, I'm liberal to say that Oklahoma was a white supremacy state. They believed in white supremacy. They even had members of the Ku Klux Klan who were also members of the same law organization that I belonged to, that is Oklahoma Bar Association. Yet they had Ku Klux Klan members in that organization practicing law at that Tulsa County Courthouse when I started practicing law. Matter of fact, I had a case against one of them. And they let me know then how they felt about blacks. So I say at this time that Oklahoma started out as a white supremacy organization. And today, I think they still carry out some of their attitudes when it comes to dealing with black people. And that's why I'm in trouble today. Because I'm black, my mama was black, my dad was black, and I have nothing against black people. I think they've been mistreated by Oklahoma. So, after I came back, started practicing law, there came an opportunity for someone to go into the Tulsa County Courthouse, which has been completely segregated all these years. And they came to me and asked me if I would try to go down, if I would take a job at the Tulsa County Courthouse. And I didn't want to do it, but I was told that this is a chance for us to get the courthouse open if you go in. So I went in as an investigator, even though I was a lawyer. I went in as an investigator for there. And I served about 2 or 3 years as an investigator. And that was done by J. Howard Edson, who is deceased now. But he was the county attorney at that time. And he hired me. And I went in and started working as an investigator at their office. Later on, while I was there, after serving many years, I think it was 3 or 4, an issue developed as to what they had another investigator. There was 3 of us, but then something had happened with the budget where they needed to hire another investigator or keep one investigator. In order to do that, they had to look at my situation and offer me a job as assistant district attorney. Assistant county attorney. I wasn't interested in it because at that time I was practicing law as an investigator, but I was practicing law in my law practice. So it meant closing down my law practice and going to work for the county full time. And I didn't want to do that. But I had several people to come to me and explain to me that this is a chance for us to get that courthouse open. Get a person in the Tulsa County Courthouse. So knowing what my original goal was to try to do something for black people, I accepted. So I went in there as an investigator. And as an investigator, quite naturally, I was a lawyer also. So I just took advantage of both opportunities. Later on, while I was there, they got into a budget problem. And they needed me to move me up so they could have money, so they could have my position open and put an investigator in my spot and make me an assistant county attorney. And I told you before, I didn't want to do it, but I was told several black people, this is a chance for us to move. So I accepted the position. But anyway, when I became assistant district attorney, I did my job. I think I did the best job that anybody could do under the circumstances. As a result of that, I worked, my entire years at the courthouse was approximately 13 and a half years. I served about 10 years as assistant district attorney. I went through several district attorneys. I think I can name them. I started off with Buddy Fowles. He was, after Buddy Fowles, David Hall came in. After David Hall, and he was also ran for governor and won the governorship. But then he got in trouble. Then after David Hall, there was can't think of his name. I can't think of his name now, but he was county attorney for about 8 years. I'll think of his name in a minute. But then, after that, they hired Buddy Fowles. Buddy Fowles, we got in trouble. Didn't get into trouble. He got to the place where he didn't want me in his office. And the reason why he didn't want me in his office, in 1964, they passed the Civil Rights Bill. And the Civil Rights Bill gave blacks as many rights as whites had. He didn't like that, in my opinion. So when something developed, and he told me to leave his office. He fired me. So I went on back and started my own law practice again. But I practiced law up until '78. And at that time, urban renewal came through. Had been through before then, but they came through there, and they wanted to change North Tulsa. Now, one would think that the urban renewal was a blessing to Tulsa, but it was not a blessing to Tulsa. It was an opportunity to deprive blacks further than what had occurred in previous years. They, as a result of that, you know, the Greenwood area was completely demolished over a period of time. And they used federal money to do it. But they wouldn't use federal money or anybody else's money to help blacks. But they used it to destroy it. And Oklahoma's going to have to pay their dues for that. Not only Oklahoma, but the whole federal government is going to have to be account for that, because that was wrong. They could have used that same money that they used in foreign affairs to help people in other nations. They could use some of that money to help blacks, which they knew they had mistreated them. But they didn't. They declined to do that. They don't want to do that, but they're going to have to do it because it cannot continue on this way. Black people will still be born tomorrow, the next day, and they're going to always ask why they were treated the way they were treated, and they were actually treated, mistreated. South Carolina was the first state to introduce slavery, and they have mistreated blacks ever since, and I'm here to tell them that they have. Okay. After Fowles fired me, I went on to start practicing law, and I had a good practice, doing it all right. Wasn't a problem. But then when I reached the age of retirement, I wanted to practice law and draw my retirement. I had married and had 3 kids. Without filing for my retirement, they turned me down. See, I didn't have enough time in. Even though I had 15 years of service, 2 with the United States Marine Corps in Okinawa and China, and 13 and a half years in the district attorney's office. They said that didn't qualify me for retirement. I still haven't got my retirement, but I'm going to try to get it. And they owe me almost 30 years of retirement money since the time I filed, and they turned me down. And they turned me down because they said I did not have enough time in. I don't know how much where they expect me to get any more time. But that's another issue. But I was very much upset over it after all I had done for them to look at me that way. But then what made me accept it, not get disturbed over it, was the fact that I knew I was black. My mama always told me I was black and I was going to have a hard time. So I knew that by denying me my retirement, they were doing it because I was black. There was white boys and white men who had the same thing, and they were getting their retirement. But they denied me. They denied me the retirement. I don't get any retirement today, even though I got 15 years of service. But it's not because of me, but it's because I'm black. That's why they won't give me any retirement. and they don't like the idea of what I have done in the past in terms of supporting black people. Who else am I going to support if I don't support my own race? My own race. What do I have against black people? Nothing. I'm black myself. So after that, I left and went into private practice, and I continue to private practice today. But they still after me. They don't like it because I help black people. So they got a bar complaint against me. I don't mind anybody doing it. Trying to disbar me, but they can't do it. I have done anything to be disbarred. But it lets me know that they still are not right. They still are not right. They don't want to treat black people like they should. Just like they will not give them any kind of reparation for what they've done to them. And I think they owe it.
Mr. Latimer, could I ask you a couple more questions about your parents and,
Yes.
and how they arrived in Oklahoma?
Yes. My mother and father both were from South Carolina. And my father and mother came here. Can't remember what year it was. It started after World War I. And at that time, I was not born. I was not a member of that family. But the Latimers played an important role in Oklahoma's development. My father and wife and his wife came to Oklahoma, and it was 10 of them. My father had 5 brothers and 5 sisters. They all were students at Tuskegee Institute, Tuskegee, Alabama, which was the only one of the black colleges that was in existence at the time they were going to school. And they all went there. For some reason, someone told them to come to Oklahoma, and that's what they did. A lot of the buildings in downtown Tulsa were built by the Latimers. Matter of fact, all of First Street was built by the Latimers before they changed it. My uncles and my father both, they were building contractors. But anyway, when my father lost his job, he was working with one of the companies downtown. He came to our house and started a business. At that time, they didn't have the code regulations like they have now. So he started his barbecue business in our home, and his grocery store in our home. Then, just for a short period of time, he moved over what was called Pine and Greenwood. And he stayed there until the overlord came and destroyed the building. Took it under some theory of what's the theory? Investment. Developing expressways and all that kind of stuff, which was against blacks. Then, I like to say this about my dad, and I didn't know that until here recently, that they give it a complete understanding on it. My father started his barbecue business in our home. Then he moved to Pine Street. 565 East Pine Street was Pine and Greenwood. He started the business there, and became quite successful in that business. Latimer's Barbecue was well known throughout Oklahoma and throughout parts of the United States, because people lived in Oklahoma, moved to California. But what I realized here recently about it is what he had to do. In order to run his business, he had to work approximately 18 hours a day. he had to open that place up and close it down. And he did it because he had 6 children to take care of. And he didn't have no job, there was no welfare assistance, there was nothing for him to get except go to work and take care of us. And I realized how much time he spent and how he devoted his whole life to us. He wouldn't let nobody touch us either. And I have 2 younger brothers, James and Charles. They're 10 years younger than I am. He did everything he could to take care of them, let them do what they wanted to do. He spent his money on taking care of them. And he spent it on all of us. But I just realized the other day that he worked from morning until night. He'd go home, maybe 1 or 2 days a week. He'd be at home. But that was very seldom. He stayed with that business because that's the only thing he had. That's the only thing he had to support his family. And he devoted his time to it. Okay. The important point about that I'd like to make at this time. The city of Tulsa mistreated my father. The city of Tulsa, the police department, mistreated my father. The way they did it, he had a going business. He was doing all right. He was making adequate funds to support us. And the Tulsa Police Department and the city of Tulsa came in there and told him that he would have to fix a place for white people to eat only. It had to eat separately from blacks. That was the attitude. And they gave him so much time to do it. He told them, if you don't want white people come to my business, you put a policeman out there in front and stop them and tell them, don't come in here. And they said to him, what are you trying to do, get smart with us, nigga? We know what to do for people like you. My mother stepped in and said, oh, he didn't mean that. We're going to do whatever you ask us to do. She saved the day. She saved the day because they would have done something to my dad. They had already threatened to kill several blacks who resisted the fact that they had resisted segregation. But anyway, the blacks couldn't borrow money. That's what I want the city of Tulsa to know and the people of Tulsa to know. Blacks couldn't borrow no money. He was under order from the police to segregate his business and to build a separate place for white people to come and eat. Otherwise, they're going to shut him down. And when he made the statement about you don't stop them from coming in here, that's when they said, what are you going to do? You getting smart with us, nigga? My mother stepped up and said, no, he didn't mean that. Please, we'll do what you say you want us to do. But about 2 or 3 days later, my father was a World War I veteran. And they sent off some bonds. The United States government issued some bonds to World War I veterans. And my father qualified. And they sent him his bonus check. And he used his bonus check to segregate that business. Not to support his family. He used it to obey the police. And I think that was wrong. That was wrong. But he did segregate that building. And built a separate place for white people to eat. Well, look at that on the butt. Today I know that was the wrong thing for them to do. There's nothing wrong, no difference between black people and white people except the color of their skin. And that's all. They all got brains. They all got blood in the body. Blood in the body. But anyway.
Do you remember what year it was that he was approached by the police and they told him to build a separate room?
It had to be in the 40s.
In the 40s.
Early 40s, yes. And he did it. Now, while we're on that, brother, older brother, who also served in the United States Marines, somewhere after we came back from service, he said to me, and at that time I was, well, it had to be after I had graduated from law school. So it must have been in the 50s when he said, I'm not going to segregate this business anymore. They're going to all have to eat in here together if they want to eat. But no, it was after 57 because we were the first blacks to go to the fair in 1957. There had been no black business at the fair at that time. So we went there. So it was after that my brother said, I'm going to open that business up to people sit wherever they want to sit. And I knew it had to be at the time I was practicing law because I asked him what was he going to do if the Tulsa Police Department wouldn't allow him to do it. And that's what he said. He didn't care what they wanted to do. He was going to do it that way. And he opened the business back up to everybody without any segregation whatsoever. And I appreciate him for that. And I guess without him being an older brother and by him being an ex-Marine, I guess he felt as though he had the courage to do it. And he did. He stopped it. And I thank him today for it. But since we're talking about the situation, I know from that he was mistreated. They went back and told somebody because he had furnished Tuskegee Institute as an electrician. He went down there to take the contractor's license for electrical work, and he never got through. Each time they turned him down, even though he had gone to one of the best industrial schools that this country had. But they turned him down. He never did. He didn't get a contractor's license at all, and I think that was wrong. And I think that's because he stopped segregation at Latimer. Because you know words pass fast. You better watch this person, watch that person. He'll do this and he'll do that. And that's the game that the Caucasians have played, the Oklahoma Caucasians have played for many years. Picking out a black and tell you, watch what he's doing, watch what he's doing, and stop him. But anyway, that's how that happened. I appreciate my brother for doing that. But they never gave him a contractor's license, and I feel as though, even though the people who turned him down are dead, they started from segregation. And I feel as though before I die, I want to do something about that because he was mistreated. He was mistreated.
Mr. Latimer, I'm sorry. I was going to ask you if you could tell us what schools you attended here in Tulsa.
Booker T. Washington and Carver Junior High School. Well, I went to Dunbar Elementary School.
Okay. I
went from there to Carver Junior High. And I went from there to Booker T. Washington High School. That's where I graduated in 1944. And then when I got back from the service, I intended to go to one of the law schools here. But I found out that they wouldn't let me in because I was black. So I had to go to Indiana, where they didn't let me in. But I put restrictions on myself because I knew what was happening in Oklahoma. So I didn't go to Indiana to cause no trouble, to bother anybody. I stayed by myself all while I was there.
Were your parents members of a church or a political party?
They were pressed. Yes, they were. My mother, who was a musician, a music instructor, she was a member of First Baptist Church, where I remember now. I joined First Baptist Church when I was a child. She used to take us up there. All of all the kids, she would take them to First Baptist with her. But my father went to Mount Zion Baptist Church, which he had helped to build, along with his brothers. And he was a member of Mount Zion Baptist Church, which is still in existence right now, and operating. But the latter was built Mount Zion Baptist Church. And my father was a member of that. But as I said before, he worked 18 hours a day. He didn't close on no Sunday. He was trying to support us. My mother would ask him about going to church, and he was reluctant to do anything. He even talk about it, because he wanted his place open when the customers came. And if they came on a Sunday, he wanted to be there. And he did. And I appreciate the fact that he took that into consideration in supporting us. He wasn't going to do anything not to be able to help us do what we needed to do. So he stayed over 7 days a week. He worked 18 hours a day. My mother wanted to know when he was going to stop and go to church. He wouldn't leave his business. He had a business to eat, and that was something that belonged to him. And when the people told him to segregate it, my mother said, "You want to do what they tell you to do?" He realized that was his business. And we shouldn't shut it down. He didn't want to shut down. He worked too hard to get the bills up. Now,
I also asked if they were members of a political party.
oh, my mother, I know my father was a Republican. I know that. But my mother was a Democrat. And she joined, I don't know when she joined the Democratic Party, but the Democrats were quite popular during that period of time. And I know she was a Democrat, but my dad was a Republican.
And what party did you join?
Democratic Party.
Democratic Party.
Democratic Party, yes. When I came back, I had an uncle who was a Democrat. And he influenced me to join the Democratic Party, which I did. And I stayed with him. I'm still with him. I'm still a Democrat. I like the idea of the Democrats. I think will benefit